Alright guys, welcome back to another Warframe video. So today is one that from my perspective has been a long time coming and something that I have put off, but I have been meaning to come back and do again, because I've gotten tons of really great info as always. Thanks guys, for those of you that are active in the comments on my YouTube channel page. As I said, just due to volume, I can't really respond to all of them, but I do read everything, and I do respond to a pretty healthy chunk on every video's release, as it were. But I have gotten consistently from the very beginning tons of great information in the comments section. And kind of as I'm approaching this stage of my path in the game, some of the things that I've yet to fully grasp and retain are going to be really critical kind of from this point forward. As we've nearly cleared out our path around the star chart, there's just a few left. I think on Eris, Alad V, Mutalist Alad V, and the Jordis Golem. That's the two that we have remaining. So we're getting close, and before we get to that point and we move on to much more challenging stuff in the game, it's going to be really important that I can really kind of tighten up some of the base fundamentals. And one of the key ones is the modding system in this game, which is obviously very vast. There's a ton of mods, and I have taken a fair chunk away from it, but there's still a lot that I have left to learn, and I've obviously vastly increased the size of my mod collection over time, so there's just this really big pile that I've got to figure out what is what. So we're going to be digging deep into mods today. That is going to be my goal. I did already clear out the things I had crafting the last time, which was all the Equinox parts. I think I have going now the two aspects because the parts were finished. And I also grabbed the Banshee frame that we had crafting. Might have had another weapon in there as well. So I don't remember exactly everything that I had, but that's what we put going on. And then when I logged in today, I had a nice 75% off anything in the marketplace. And I decided to pick up I believe it was the Dagoth Warframe. I'm just going to look and see if that is now, if there's parts in here. I probably have to go over to the arsenal first, but let's just check and see. Dagoth, yep, 0. Oh, so I already have it, so I don't have to craft it. I just outright purchased it. Okay, great. No, that's great. So since we have a clean slate here, I'm just going to use them kind of as my base to target and look at mods. So this may be a rather boring video to some folks, and I appreciate if this video is not for you, but it's something that I really do need to do. So my default for pretty much all of the Warframes I've done is going to be, what is it, steel charge? Yeah, plus 60 melee damage, which, the way that I play the game, heavily melee focused, so that has constantly made sense to me. So if I pop that up there, obviously it's not the right polarity, but it still pops more points in. So 25 of 25. So this is really just kind of choose your poison. What is the aura mod that you want? And I know that I have some others in here as well, probably mostly down on this left side. Gosh. Yeah, like Energy Siphon. Here would be another possible option that I could swap out. Obviously, if I pop that one on, you could see it lowers my total point value. So we've got Steel Charge back up. I'm just going to scroll through to see if there's any other base aura mods that I have. That might be the two. I feel like there might have been a third, but I could be completely mistaken. I'm just taking a quick peek. Yep, Physique, that's another one, which I guess is useful, but I'm not sure how important that is. I mean, I've had a lot of recent comments trying to explain the intricacies of the mod system and what to look at to kind of determine on which way you want to go. This is clearly not an armor frame. It's a health dominant frame. So maybe throwing physique in here would make sense, because the goal on a frame like this, as I understand it, would be to try to get that number up as high as possible. So possibly throwing that one in there would make sense. I'm not really sure. That would be kind of playing around and testing out builds, I suppose. But let's just assume that I'm on the right path and that that would actually make sense. Then, of course, there's also health regen, which would be pretty big intrinsically. Any health regen over time. It doesn't add anything to the base, but the base is already really high. So we're just going to operate under these couple of assumptions. So let's just leave rejuvenation on for now. Let's just pretend that this is a good choice. Whether or not it is, neither here nor there for the purposes of what I'm trying to discern. So I'm going to go into mods. I'm going to take rejuvenation. We're going to click that. We're going to edit it, and we're going to bump it. And we're going to start seeing what this does. I've got plenty of endo. I've got plenty of credits. So let's just start bumping. Let's just max this one. Let's just say, yes, I'll apply the fusion. Yes, I'm sure. Back it back out. Now we're just going to hover over and look. Okay, and that only dropped it down 2 total points by bumping this all the way up. So plus 3 health regen per second. Doesn't sound like a ton, but, in the middle of a fight, I think it could be useful. Perhaps this would not be as inherently useful or valuable as, say, if my theory is correct, grabbing something like physique that already bumps the max health. Now this is a maxed mod, so it just gives the base plus 20, takes it up into the 600s, which is not bad. So let's just pretend that this is a decent option. I'm not trying to make an argument that it is or isn't. I will figure that out as I play around with things, but at the end of the day, this is going to be a key. Now, we also have energy spent on abilities converts to shields. I do have kind of 2 separate ones of these set up. I don't have a right polarity slot that would allow me to pop that on and get a nice decrease, but I do still think that that might be useful. So let's just pop it into a slot and look and see what happens. That will give us a little bit of ability duration bump. This obviously would also be huge. I mean, this is just ridiculously useful on pretty much any build, in my opinion. I haven't had this mod for long, but it definitely seems to do good work. So energy siphon, we knew what that was. That I'm sure works on some specific builds, but let's ignore that for now. Streamline, I do believe, should be another kind of just one of my defaults on most frames. Ability efficiency. Again, it's not the right polarity to get me any lowered cost, but it's one of those that's going to bump. So we've got efficiency and duration in their kit kind of built in there. Ability range, that again, wrong polarity. So what I want to try to do is see if I can find one with this or that polarity. So that looks like one that I might want to use. Red resistant, we don't really need. Let's just start left to right. So my goal here is to just scroll through these, hazard a guess at what looks like it might work, and then just kind of throw it on to see what happens. Equilibrium, I do know over time I'm going to get that on here. That for sure I want as we get it leveled up. These are kind of niche. Again, I mean, I'm not saying they're not useful. I just don't think that they bring the most to the table, and I'm going to be starting by looking for one with either of these 2 polarities. So we're just going to skip all of the ones like that until we get over. Okay, diamond skin. That's rad resistance. Not saying it's not useful, but I don't think it's the most useful. Shield recharge and delay recharge. Obviously, they're not a heavy shield build, so maybe for the purpose of intrinsically focusing down on what kind of their base stats tell me, I don't want to say that this would be a bad one to pop on. Obviously, it would bump the numbers, but I don't know as though that necessarily is as symbiotic with their build, since they're not kind of a shield dominant focused frame. So let's just keep looking. Fast deflection. It is one that I almost always put on. I do know that. Flame repellent. We know what that is, of course. Gladiator Aegis, melee crit chance per combo multiplier. That could potentially be useful. It does throw a little base armor on. Let's just see what that would do. You know, for +8, you could make the argument it might be useful. I don't think just looking at the number as I pop that on that it's one that I'm going to be grabbing. Melee crit, again, drains energy to stop lethal damage. That, again, is kind of niche. I'm guessing maybe on some higher tier content that could be really useful, prevent you from going down outright. Cold, again, lightning rod, all of these, we know what these are going to be. That's Aura mod, which would be the opposite one that I would think maybe would be a good choice, rejuvenation or physique. On this specific frame, I don't know. I'll figure it out. Redirection, obviously, we know what this does. That's one that I like to go for on almost all frames. Just for the purpose of the test, let's pop that on. That's a dramatic boost, since this is not a shield-heavy, focused frame. So, again, we're just scrolling through what we have first, guys, before we make our final decisions. Chance to stagger on block, chance to stun on block. I'm sure that's useful, but in the grand scheme, I don't know how useful it is. Redirection, we know what that is. Reflex, combo count, chance while blocking. That's probably pretty good, especially if you bump some points into it. It's not one that I've used, but I don't know how truly, this is not going to impact numbers if I put that on there. We can just read it and see what it does. So I could see it being useful, but for just getting some base stats up, it's obviously not going to come into play in what I'm trying to figure out right now. Obviously, their armor is quite low. If I threw in a steel fiber, that would, again, make a pretty significant bump. 90 points, not bad, but is their armor up all that high? No, because they are a health-based frame. So maybe that's going to come into play at some point down the line. Maybe it's not. Steel fiber, yep, we just looked at. Vitality is obviously a big one. Since they are a health frame, I'm thinking that this might be one of the better ones to choose. Then we get into the other polarities here. These are pretty cool. Ability strength, that obviously sounds like it could be strong. Convert damage on health to energy. That actually, yeah, this could be really good too, just for the purpose of keeping more energy in the tap to throw out. So let's pretend that this is one that would be useful to have on. Obviously, I have no points in it, and this is just the base build, but this is one we're definitely going to keep in our mind. Hunter Adrenaline seems like it would be a very good fit, as does Vitality based on the fact that it's a health frame. What would that bump it? 1,000. So this is probably the most single obvious choice on this board that I'm seeing based on what the starting numbers told me. It's a health frame. It's designed around keeping you on your feet with the highest health possible. That nearly doubles it. So that's huge. Vitality is obviously one. It's probably the single one that I'm going to jump on here first. Warm Coat, not bad. Again, I'm sure that's fine, but I don't think that brings the most to the table to me, at least in this here and now. Ability strength obviously would be huge. Intensify is going to be huge. Again, yeah, this is pretty cool, but I don't think that it's competing with these others right now. Provoked damage during bleed out. Okay, and that's just the opposite Aura mod. So for me, for sure, Vitality. I'm going to make the assumption that I'm on the right path, that reading these numbers, it's a health-based frame. That only leaves me 1 point, so that's going to be the starting setup for this frame. Now, we can go back and just look at the frame again. Dagoth. I'm just going to click on it. Whoops. Actually, I could scroll over here. Viral damage with guaranteed effect is spread doom to extend its duration. Portion of damage that you deal gets thrown back on them again, and they suffer viral. Supercharged with extra crit, doubled on doom, escape fatal blows, Okay, Spectral Form. These all sound pretty interesting. Variable damage on their path, attack strip, the defenses. So these are all things that are going to be making me hit real strong, at least how it seems on the surface. But what I do want to do, this actually annoys me. The fact that they don't show you in the arsenal the passive. I don't know why that is. So let's just scroll over to Dagoth. Click it. I did read this before. Energy and health orbs will be 300% more effective. So that's pretty big. Anything that's going to give you that kind of a chance, again, that just means more energy back into the tap, more health back into the tap. So we've got some really nice means of throwing out some pretty gnarly damage here just in their base kit. And this is, I mean, that's probably the strongest passive I have on any of the frames that I own to date. Maybe you could make an argument otherwise, but it does seem like a pretty strong kit. So this is where we're going to start. We're going to start by making the assumption the health is going to trump all of the rest of the mods, and we went through them one by one, and I know there's a couple other ones that I'm going to want on here down the line as we actually get them ranked up and get some points going. So that's my thought process. That's the starting point. We also got to kind of scroll through just what do we have in terms of base mods for our Warframes. There's some in here that are a bit more niche. You know, if you have the points to spare, throw on it. Great, go for it. But there are some very, very key ones here that I think are going to work for most builds. At least that's my takeaway. So I've gotten a good look at some of these new ones that I've picked up over time. Some are better than others, at least on the surface, but I'm sure that there's specific builds that some of these that I said I would skip for now are going to come into play. But at least I have a pretty good and clear idea of what I've got just sitting base kind of in my arsenal here to be able to pull out. Now, the next thing that I want to do... Oh, actually, I did also grab their weapon. I should get that crafting. Or do I just pick it up? What was it called? Let me go back to the marketplace because I did grab this. I just want to look and see. The Doorclave. Okay. Run back over here. That will be a melee, so let's pop over here. Doorclave. There we go. Alright, since this is their specific weapon, this one sounded like it just works so well with this frame that, you know, I kind of had to pick it up. I got a crazy good deal with 75% off on the frame itself and had some platinum left over, so I grabbed this. So 10 kills or assist, enter spectral state, double weapon follow through, guarantee status effects for the next 10 attacks, and in this frame hands, each status effect also heals you slightly. So that seems like it's going to be pretty strong. So let's just start our kind of modding journey by looking at the melee first. So let's figure out a stance mod that is actually going to fit up there. Let's see if I have one that's a stance mod for this weapon type. It looks like a sword, so I would presume that I do, but maybe I don't yet. So it doesn't appear that I actually have a stance mod for this. This is, I mean, I don't know what type of weapon they would consider this. It's obviously melee, but to what extent? What type of weapon is this? It kind of sort of looks like a sickle in one hand paired with an odd-looking sword. So, you know, it is what it is. At any rate, it doesn't appear that I have a stance mod that at all for this weapon type, so I'll have to find one over time. So since this weapon and the ability kit already have some symbiotic relationship, I'm going to get some healing after landing 10, get some guaranteed status effect, and then kind of their entire kit focuses on viral guaranteeing more damage outlay. So let's just scroll through and start with, okay, we've got one slot like that that's gonna take fewer points than anything. We could go even heavier into Toxin and just dump even greater Toxin on top of Toxin, though I'm not sure that's necessarily the right call. That would come into play. I wouldn't really be able to see the numbers until I'm actually pulling her abilities out in gameplay, so it would be a little tough to say. So for the time being, let's skip over Toxin. Impact, Jagged Edge Slash. These are all kind of the base, and I've had multiple people say, focus on the status effect more than the physical, just because you get more out of it. So, kind of depending on where we're going to dump in and play, that normally is going to determine which way I go. But I think for the purposes of this build, I am going to start with Shock in the slot. We'll see what that does to the base numbers. We've got a Slam, a Slide, Electric Total, and that's for heavies. Okay. That's not a bad start. And Shock is a pretty decent base one that can work for a lot of, different type of enemies. Cold would be another decent one, in my opinion. But let's just scroll through and just kind of see what we see. Heavy attack efficiency. I mean, cool. Yep, we already skipped. Shocking, I just put on Sundering. That's puncture, that's physical. But for the sake of argument, let's swap these mods out and see what happens. Yeah, very drastically different. And this is 1 point away from a max puncture. And I'm sure that comes into play at some point. But clearly just comparing swapping Shocking and Sundering Strike, the numbers are clear. The Shocking adds greater base damage onto it. So let's just keep going down the list. Northwind. Yeah, I mean, Cold is great, but I think Shocking, since it adds the highest... You know what? Actually, let me look at this again. This is not fully maxed out, so let's just max it. For 320, yeah, we'll apply the fusion. All right. And check the numbers again. Yeah, I mean, that extra little bit, not huge difference, but it does make a difference. So that's what happens with a max Shocking touch, since that's got the right polarity for that slot. Let's just keep scrolling and see if we see anything else that matches that polarity. I don't think so. Nope, that's the end of them. So now that leaves us with 12 more points with which to play across. It doesn't matter what the polarity is at this point. So we could load Fever on top of it with Shocking. Jagged Edge, that Slash. Again, that's going to be physical. So what happens if I pop that on? It goes up a decent bit, especially for the heavy. But if we take it out, it gets us about 500-ish additional points. And that was putting kind of a maxed out one in there. We're going to skip that for now. Heavy Trauma, again, that's another impact. Let's just look. That's probably going to drop into the heavy side. Barely different, but again, that's not a ranked up. And again, I'm intentionally trying to avoid looking at these physical effects first. So let's skip that. Heavy attack efficiency. Relentless combos. Chance to increase the melee combo counter when Slash status deals damage. So if there's a way to boost the likelihood that Slash damage procs, then this could bump up, and especially if we consider that they're on the weapon itself is every 10 lands, then it gives you another 10 on top. Anything that could kind of guarantee the combo counter keeping up. Of course, this is after 10 kills, so it's not necessarily related to a combo counter, other than it takes count of how many additional attacks you have on it. So I would say that's probably a decent mod, but it's probably not the best one I could put on to this build at this point. So let's just skip that. Blocking taunts enemies within 6 meters. +5 combo count, chance while blocking. Puncture, we're skipping. Obviously, a status effect chance is going to be strong because that's going to give us the highest chance to dump all this extra shock status. So I don't even know what would happen if I just put that mod on there by itself. It's not really going to impact the numbers, but it throws in a base percentage in the background. So that's one that could be useful. I'm going to take that off for the time being while we're still scrolling through and looking at these. Finisher damage, yeah. Chance to open enemies to finisher attacks after Warframe blocks melee. I mean, that's not bad. I'm going to skip it for now. Fury is one that I personally really like, just because it doesn't inherently add any numbers, but if you're landing attacks faster, that in turn means that your damage output per second is higher. So that is one that I always like, but I'm not going to sit here and suggest it's the best one that I should pick right now. +20 melee on heavy, +10% heavy wind-up speed. If I decided to focus this with rolling heavy attacks as kind of the primary attack I wanted to roll out, it probably could be very good. In fact, let's just pop this on here and see what that does to the numbers. Yeah, that obviously boosts the damage up, and this is an unranked mod. So if I were to rank that up, that number would go even higher still. So that's one to consider. Crit damage, that's pretty huge. Crit chance is already at 26%, so that's not bad. Melee crit chance per combo multiplier. This could be quite a strong mod. Let's pop this on and just see what it does. The crit multiplier to 3.5. Yeah, and I know that was another thing somebody mentioned relatively recently in my comments as well. When you're looking at these weapons, here's kind of some percentages. It was a really excellent bit of information that somebody took quite a long time to put in there. I think what I might start doing is copying and pasting just some of the really good comments that people have left and kind of build my own little resource so I don't have to keep drilling back into my YouTube studio and scrolling through a wall full of comments and find where they are. But this seems like this could also be really useful. Fury I like. Gladiator might on its surface also seems quite strong. Status duration... I'm not saying it's not useful. I just don't think in the grand scheme that it is as useful as others. Now, here we go. Crit damage. Since we've already got a plus 26% chance, what if we dumped another crit on top of crit? Okay, that's not quite as strong as Gladiator might. What's the difference in point outlay, though? That takes a lot more. But what if we, say, dumped that plus, where did it go? Organ Shatter. Do we have the points left that we can even do that? No, because it costs too much by 1 point. But that's something to consider down the line. If we focused in on crit, this could stack pretty well. Pressure point, the base melee damage, obviously that's going to throw the numbers significantly higher. So that is probably the single best base start that I could put on. It's one that I have on every single melee weapon for that reason, because it gives you just a base boost to your damage output on all attacks while you're using the weapon. So I'm going to stand by that is probably the single best. Everything else outside of that is just going to be based on the build. So melee slam damage, if I were doing a ton of melee slam attacks, that would also be pretty huge. You could see slam attack radial damage bumps up quite a bit there. So that's not bad. That's specific to Grenier. Infested. Another plus crit chance, and that would be specific for heavies. And then, of course, we get a status effect if we wanted to go cold. So for me, the writing is on the wall. Pressure point is the clear and obvious base choice. And I have a suspicion that getting True Steel on next... In fact, let's take that off first. Let's look at this. bumps it to 31.2. If we upgraded this mod a bit, yeah. So I have a pretty clear idea of the direction I'm going. We're starting with base damage, and then we're going to start focusing in on crit to move this number even higher, to give us the best chance to proc. I think that's going to be the direction we go with the build on this weapon. And there's some other really nice ones that would be nice to have, but we're going to get the base build itself up first. That's how we're going to do this. But we've gotten to scroll through and look at what all of these mods are and what they do if we actually put them on. So we are intentionally skipping over these physical kind of modifiers for now. I am sure that they actually are useful, and maybe they will come into play at some point down the line on this build, but for the here and now, we're going to focus on getting the base damage number up itself, and then we're going to start focusing on the crit chance to try to boost the damage on the crit side. That is kind of our test on this build first. But again, we got to scroll through all of these mods. We got to look at them and dig through them one by one and play with them, pop them on and off, swap this with that, just to see what they do. But it gives us a pretty good baseline of the direction that at least we want to go based on what we're seeing. So that's the start for this guy here. Now, Penta, I ran this on the Heart of Deimos quest, and I didn't really do that much with this weapon. I know it has an alt fire mode, and I didn't find the button, so we'll still have to play with it. So for the time being, let's just click on this and see if there's anything else that we have in here, or if I want to keep it on the Penta. Yep, the Dread, we got that recently. The Carrack, that's another new one that I haven't used yet. And then this Penta. Everything else I've got that I've picked up, I've maxed out. So we're going to stick with the Penta. But let's look and see what we actually put on here. I put an ammo drum and tether grenades because this is a mod specific to this weapon that I had. I mean, pretty hard to skip that. Grenades tether up to 2 enemies from 4 meters away. I do have one leftover point, so why don't we just drill into the mods. Click this, bump 1 additional point, apply the fusion, yes, and then see what it does. Up to 3 enemies from 5 meters away. So it grabs another enemy and it extends another meter. So this is actually going to be quite a useful mod, I think, on this weapon specifically. Ammo drum, because it didn't have the biggest mag to start with. So we've got it up to 5 now. Just to make it more useful. Ammo max is 35. Okay, that's fine. Given that it's a grenade launcher, I don't know how quickly or realistically we'll be rattling off through the rounds that we have. So, there's nothing really to mess with in here until we actually get some level ups, and then we can come back and look at some points. This is one that I know you have to do something. It says Veiled. Destroy 4 Dargans in flight using a bow while aim gliding. If I knew what a Dargan was, I could probably unlock this relatively easily. But since I don't, no clue what I need to do to unlock that. Here again, we've got, a lot of the same stuff we were looking at from the melee side of things just now on the primary side of things. So if we're looking at our crit chance and multiplier, this is probably not going to be the smartest decision since it already doesn't have that high of a crit. Radial, I mean, it's a grenade launcher, so it's just going to be pumping out damage. Multi-shot, maybe that would make sense. Crit damage, yeah, we've already looked at it. Projectile speed for a grenade launcher, maybe that comes into play, maybe it doesn't. Fire rate, Serration, obviously. In fact, you know what? Let's take one of these off. Let's take ammo drum off for now. I want to see what happens if I pop a 5 Serration on here. What happens? Okay, so it does bump the blast damage, and it does bump the impact up a bit, but I don't think that I'm going to be starting there. I think I am going to be starting with the ammo drum where I had it in the first place. but it wasn't that ammo drum mod, was it? Nope, it was this one. I'm going to flip-flop those for that. Speed trigger, yeah, we looked at. Serration, obviously, that's going to give us some good base damage. So that's one that we want to get on here when we can. Crit chance, again, this doesn't look like it's a big crit-based weapon, so we're going to skip crit. Status duration, that's if we put on some modifiers for some kind of effect, which I haven't done yet. Chance to apply slash on crit. Companion damage on enemies affected by slash. I mean, that's interesting. I'm not sure how useful it is on a grenade launcher. Status duration could potentially be nice. That's specific. 10% status chance when aiming for 2 seconds. Given that it is a grenade launcher, I mean, I don't know how much hard aiming I would be doing. Corpus, yep. Grenades have a 17% chance to stick to surfaces. So here's another grenade-specific one. This also sounds like this is one that's going to fit down here neatly along with this that is specific for the weapon. So once we get a few points, this gold unique is probably one that I'm going to want to get on there along with Serration for some base damage bump. Again, status effect. Obviously, all of these, we know what they do. And we are eventually going to want to put a modifier of some kind on there, which we will. And that will bump the damage again pretty significantly. Punch through, chance to enhance crits from primary. So again, that's not really for this weapon. That's my takeaway, just reading it and looking at the numbers up here. This is going to be more about just raw damage output, it seems. This says converts secondary to 8%. Okay, I mean, that again is kind of a niche mod specific to different loadouts you're running, I suppose. Impact puncture, we'll play around with these when we get some more points, but we've got a decent idea here. Mag capacity, we're sitting at 5, but, we don't really need that necessarily. I think just giving the ammo max, getting that up to 35, since that's not a ton already, is the preferred way for me to go right now. It's a grenade launcher. I mean, once it goes off, they're going to hear it. That doesn't really apply here. Reload speed, obviously we can see it's 2.5. Now for a grenade launcher, I don't think that's that out of line. I mean, you've got other options in between a reload, I suppose. So I'm not going to worry about that for now. I mean, that's more of a quality of life than a requirement. This isn't horribly slow given what it is. But maybe it's something we would consider. Heat, of course, we know. Zoom, don't really need it on a grenade launcher. And then this air periphery. Okay, so we've scrolled through all of these. I have a pretty good idea of where I want to go. Where was it? Adhesive blast, for sure. And then absolutely getting on some serration for some base, just pure raw damage output. And then we'll start playing with our effect modifiers. Of course, it depends on what we're doing, which one we would pick. But I've at least gotten to scroll through all of these in depth, look at them, examine them again, and have kind of a clear idea of where I want to go with it. That was the point of this, to just look at these mods again, really dig into it, scroll through the full list again, see what makes the most sense, and then take it one step at a time. Okay, Sakaris, this is getting close. And Twin Gremlins, that was another one that I had gotten a blueprint from something I did. I don't know, but I did get that. Epitaph was another. So we've actually got a fair chunk of new secondaries to work through, but we're going to finish off Sakaris first. Then, I don't know, dealer's choice, Twin Gremlins, the Lotto, and the Epitaph. But we finally got some new stuff in the background to work up there. So let's just jump onto here. Let's first look at the upgrades. We've got our Hornet Strike. That's our base damage on our secondary. That's obviously massively important. That's going to be the default one I put on because that does give the biggest base damage boost. I put crit chance on this, and, looking at the numbers, I'm not sure that that's the best mod to have on here, though I could probably make it more useful just by bumping this one. So let's just bump it 1 point. Say apply the fusion, yes. Scroll back and then see what it does. Okay, 19.2 to 22.4. That's actually a pretty big jump. If I max this out, I could get the crit chance probably up near 30%. So this may not be a bad mod, all things told. But what do we have on here? What did we set this up for? Gas, because we've got pestilence and heat. Was I doing something that involved the infested the last time I was playing? I don't honestly remember. But that's maxed. This is not. We could put some points there. So what if I just take Pistol Gambit off? It just drops back down to that, base 19.2. Having a bump there is nice, but looking at this weapon, I'm not sure that it's really geared towards crit being the dominant factor here. I think base damage output is going to be more important. So why don't I take this heated charge, whoops, and then I can bump this one a couple points. And then we'll bump back in. Yeah, I mean, that has a much more dramatic impact on the output. Again, it's a secondary. It's serving its purpose. It's just kind of a backup weapon, and we've got some kind of status effect that we could throw into the fray. Reload. This one's at 2 seconds. That feels like a wasted point to me, at least for this. That's not slow enough that I really care. We could swap maybe some of these out for something else. Concussion rounds. You know what? Let's see what that would do if I just throw one on. For a plus 15 impact, that's actually a pretty dramatic jump in the numbers. So getting some more points and considering concussive rounds seems like that would not be a bad way to consider an angle for going on this. No return, that's puncture. I don't think I have... Well, let's just look and see what that does. Okay, not as good as concussive rounds, but this is obviously two separate categories. And we could use one tier versus another. I've only got 3 points left with which to mess with. This converts primary to 8% of ammo. Okay, so... Again, this is another one of those niche ones. It's a quality of life mod. It's not going to impact our numbers here at all. Quick draw, reload speed. I'm skipping that. Slash, what would happen with slash damage on a pistol? That again goes up about the same as the not concussive puncture, as the puncture did. Razor shot, yep, skip. Mag capacity, it's already got a 15 mag, even though this is a burst fire. I think it shoots in a burst of 3, so I get 5 shots, then a 2-second reload, but a max of 210, which for the secondary, which I don't use that often, is probably fine. So I don't think that I'm going to get as much value out of either of these. Steady hands weapon recoil. I don't recall this having atrocious recoil. I'm sure that there are some weapons that are so hard to control that this makes sense, but not on this weapon for me. Reduce the chance. I mean, I'm sure that that's useful in some instances. That, again, to me seems like a wasted mod. The max ammo, obviously, anything is going to throw it up. We're already at 210. If we do plus 15, it goes to 241. It's burst fire, so it's going to burn through it quicker than some other weapon types, but I don't think that that's as powerful of a mod for now. So let's just keep going. Status chance. So if we just throw this on, that's just going to throw the proc chance on here. So, I mean, adding a higher chance for that to pop up is probably useful. But given that it's already got a relatively low status chance, I don't think that's the right mod, at least to slot in with just 3 points left. So let's just keep scrolling. We know what those do. Fulmination improves the blast radius with radial attacks. This does not have a radial attack, so that would not bump this. I don't think that. Yeah. So I couldn't even put it on if I wanted to, but radial is its own category, as we saw on the Penta. So this, if it weren't a grenade launcher, this would go beautifully into the mix on the Penta, but clearly it doesn't apply to this one. Fire rate, what is our fire rate? 3.5. It's slow. So this, could be nice, but it's not as critical mass as, say, some of these others. The fire rate, it is what it is. Also bearing in mind that this is not a maxed out Hornet Strike, so we could keep going here. And I've got another stack of 6 that already started at the base. On headshots, crit chance when aiming for 2 seconds. That could be useful, a little bit niche. I'll skip that one. Projectile speed, I don't really think it's that important. Status duration, again, it's just going to impact these numbers here. But we're just looking to get the base number up itself. So really, the writing on the wall seems I have 3 leftover points. The best use is going to be to pump in 3 more points into that Hornet Strike mod. But let's just keep going. We're down to the end. Pistol Gambit, we already looked at this, but the crit number is so low. Could it be built up to make it useful? Yes. Do I think it's that important on this weapon? No, not really. And crit damage, if it pops up, fine. I guess that could bump it, but it's not going to have any dramatic impact, and obviously I couldn't use that right now, as it were. So for my purposes, I'm going to take this Hornet Strike, and we're going to bump 3 more points into this. That seems clearly to be the best use of what we have. And this may mess up some builds I already have in the background. Nope, it didn't. So let's just pop that in and look at it again. That hands down was the best use of those points that we had. And actually, what happens if I take that off? Hornet Strike, where did you go? Because of the polarity, we get some extra points out of it. So I think I could max this. Let me just click this one more time. Hornet Strike. I'm going to add it one at a time. I think it's just going to... Oh, it's not going to allow me. Oh, I don't have enough endo because the last bumps that I did took a ton. So I had 7,000 some odd endo, and I used a boatload to get that Hornet Strike bumped up. So, yeah, we're going to need more endo, which is fine. But, look, the point of this exercise was to dig back through the mods. While I'm in here, we'll just, go ahead and look at our Parazon as well. I don't have a ton of them. Parkour speed after a Mercy for 15 seconds. I guess that's cool. Master Key, I guess that's also cool. But what I have on is plus 8 seconds to hacking, which I find to be more useful more of the time. Mercy Kill refills primary and secondary. So that's also pretty cool. And then shock enemies within 20 meters while you're hacking. So if anybody runs up on you, they're going to get hit with that status effect. I don't have a ton of Parazon mods, but I think for me, I chose the right ones. We'll leave it at that. Now I want to drill into the lens for a minute. We need to get Wellspring open. 60,000. Let's get that unlocked. What is hardened Wellspring? Operator, 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 Warframe and Operator. Operator, Operator, Passive Warframe. That's actually, pretty useful. This is also Warframe and Operator. Energy pickups grant, additional energy over. Yeah, this this, since it applies to both, 50,000 is a pretty low cost to upgrade that. So I'm going to throw another point in there. This also applies to both. First ability creates a well of energy for 5 seconds. Allies that pass through gain energy. Yeah, I mean, that's useful, especially when you're playing with others. This is the same thing. It applies to both. Use your first ability to increase its size, boost duration, and 12% ability strength to those inside. That is definitely like I'm all in for the team. This one, you know, I get it, and that would lower the recharge. But I think on here, since I have another 182, I would rather bump one more into this, since this is a dual, applies to Warframe and Operator, and it's going to give us more energy over time, which is kind of the aim of focusing on Zenurik in the first place. Yes, whoops, I think I just said no like an idiot. That is correct, I did say no. Energy Pulse, we upgraded that. Wellspring, we unlocked that. And did I open Hardened as well? Nope. Bump another upgrade. And then say yes. Okay, great. So that drops, you know, our total pool of credit there down a bit. But that's where we are sitting. So that's going to be our Zenurik lens, our Parazon, and we've looked at all of the loadout here. Chi, let's just look again. And, oh gosh, I wish I could just have that not show up on my screen. There, it's quiet there. And you'll notice that I do not have a fetch mod. I desperately want one, but I don't have one, which is why it's not on not on my companion. I don't have a fetch. Damage. This actually seems like this could be a really strong mod that gives me a nice little boost back as Chi would be doing her thing. That's actually a pretty cool mod, but for the purposes of looking at this and getting more benefit back to me, let's take that off. That gives us 4 points. Let's pop this on instead. And we've got 1600 endo. Bump 1, bump 2, bump 3, bump 4. That only takes 150. Okay. I think that will tap us back down to 0. Yep. And I will be healed for 25% of the companion damage dealt, which is going to throw more potential healing back in my direction. So yeah, this one's pretty cool too. But I think that this might actually be more useful, especially considering that, you know, they come back themselves over time now instead of dying out. I feel like maybe this is an older mod. Not that this isn't useful. I mean, it's quite strong. Overguard and being able to heal with melee hits. But for my purposes, I think that this is going to be more useful. Metal fiber we've already got on, of course. Yeah, I mean, I don't have a ton of mods for Chi. Enhanced Vitality, you know, I think they have enough health as it were. 940. I give them more armor. Yeah, pretty well balanced. So that's what we're looking at on the Kibro side of things. Skip that. Let's come look at our Archwing. It has been a while since I've poked in here. Shield recharge and overall health. Then that's the same one. That takes 6 points. And I have an open slot with 3, so I should be able to pop this on no problem. Okay, ability range. Nothing else I can do there. I'm fully tapped on points, but that's all of the mods we have that work in the Odonata. Nothing else to mess with there. Let's look at this again. That's damage output. Yep. Impact. What else do we have? Automatic trigger. That's fire rate. Don't really need that. Mag extension. We don't have the points left in any slot that we could do it. Because we haven't been focusing on Archwing missions to put more XP on it, really. The last Archwing stuff that we did was just farming... for the Equinox, the boss fight with the Equinox, where you start in your Archwing in the beginning, but you're basically not doing anything in it, so you're not going to get XP on it, really. So yeah, that's the points we have for that. Let's look at the Veritox. Melee damage, base bump, and there's not enough points for anything else. That's going to be the most important that's in here. Over attack speed, crit damage, and status chance. But, you know, for the sake of just looking at this, what if I just click? Do I even have anything else? Nope, that's the one that I have. Same thing for this. Anything else? Nope, that's the one that I have. Odonata, same thing. That's what I have. Equip K-Drive Launcher. None. Maybe that's separate. Well, I have... a launcher. I have the K-Drive in my equipment. But maybe that is something different that it's asking me to do. Either way, we're skipping that. That takes care of all of the mods and mod sections and double checking for upgrades over there. Now, of course, we do have our Railjack, and I did pick up some mods after running some missions. I think this is Railjack, right? Plexus? Is that the... Yep, Railjack. Okay. So... I'm guessing that's like the base, like, stance mod of sorts for the Railjack. With no enemies within. Okay, boost speed. Ordnance damage. That would obviously be useful. We've got 18 points, so let's pop that on. What is this? Turret damage when shields are above. Maximum ordnance munitions. That will also be useful. May as well make use of that polarity. I don't know how important the cruising speed is. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it's not. I haven't done enough Railjack missions to really have a sense. But, you know what? Let's just see if we can bump a couple points on some of these. Ordnance munitions, that would be nice to have bumped. So let's look at this. Yep. Let's apply that. Okay, plus 50%. Yeah, that's pretty big. Especially since on some of the weapons that you can man on the Railjack, there's not a limitless pool of ammo. I did discover that. So I think that that is a good use of points. Boost speed, ordnance damage. I think ordnance damage obviously is going to be useful. So let's go in and mod that one. Now this has a lot of upgrade points. And I have a limited amount of endo. So, 620. Let's bump that down. I'd like to keep it above 1,000 for other stuff that may come up. So that's what we're going to bump that to now. Let's back out and just see what this does for the Railjack. Yeah, okay. That's a nice, good bump. So, you know, this is obviously going to be applying in-game, in-mission when we're doing things. So, you know, the base stats that are up here are already pretty cool. I like it, though. Looks good. Now, what happens if I say mod? That's just going to pull me in the mods. I know that there's going to be a way that I can customize the look of this thing. Intrinsics versus upgrades. What is intrinsics? earned by playing Railjack missions. Uh-huh. I have 3 available. Yeah, we're going to put 1 in gunnery for sure. Make it hit harder. We'll do 1 in tactical. Now, we don't want to get spread too thin. Yeah, why not? We'll go engineering as well. Okay. So definitely worth poking around in there, though I do have to figure out where we actually do visual modifications on that. You know what? It's possible that it's in...
Something's out there, dreamers. Nora can feel it. Pulling at her waters like the moon pulls.
Configure. Is that just going to pop me back into the mods again? Yeah. See, I'm guessing that somewhere, I can edit visually how the Railjack looks. Maybe I have to do it from the dojo. I don't know. I was able to customize the look of my orbiter here from somewhere. Where was that? Yeah, that's just there. So the plexus. I'll have to figure that out. I don't see anything that's obvious. It didn't pop up from the arsenal. There's nothing in here that mentions the Railjack. No. Not at all. That's okay. But at any rate, the point here and kind of my goal and my aim was to just drill through the mods. Obviously, there's going to be some upgrades and points that are going to be needed as I'm going through this process. But there's a lot to take in. There's a lot to remember. So I'll keep using this Dagoth and Penta, and I already forgot the name of their melee, Dorklave, and Sikaris kind of as my base starting point for kind of how I want this to pop out. As we're doing our test. So we're going to be doing some build up on Dagoth in the upcoming video. I haven't even customized any of the look on any of this yet, which I will do. But I didn't want to jump into too many things at once in this video. This video was strictly for the purpose of drilling into the mods, comparing one to another, popping some on and off, popping something else in its place to look and see what it actually does to the numbers, and then trying to pay more acute attention to the base stats on the weapons themselves. Like, is it a weapon that's designed around crit? Is it something that's designed around base damage? All of these things are important, and yeah, they tell you there, but, you know, I clearly haven't been paying as much attention as I should have on these. And obviously we do need to eventually get a stance mod for this, which would be wonderful, which we will do. But that is going to be today's video, guys. I'm going to have very limited cuts. I've only been recording a tick over an hour here, but we're not going to dig into anything else today. The purpose of this video was to take a deep dive into the mods that I have, figure out what makes the most sense and why, try to make more sense of what I've got at my disposal, and to try to set things up with the best setup and use that I can. Obviously, depending on what you're using, it's going to differ, but I need to, you know, just periodically come back here, give a good deep dive, a deep dig, to look at the numbers, see what happens with different setups and combos, to try to get my builds as strong as I can. That is the end game. As always, guys, I'm sure a lot of you are going to watch this video intently. Please let me know what I got right, what I discerned correctly, and as always, let me know what I got wrong. If you have other suggestions, as well as, hey, you know, you said not that and you chose that instead, but this is actually the right one and that's the wrong one, and here's why. That's really helpful because the mod system, you just have the data that they tell you about it, plus looking at the numbers as you swap them on and off. Other than just going in and testing a bunch of different mods in the field, which would be hours and hours and hours to do, which is no problem. Maybe I need to do that. But by all means, I do appreciate the comments and the feedback. I will read them. I will take them to heart, and that will hopefully tighten up my modding game as I continue my journey. Guys, that is going to do it for today. As always, I do sincerely appreciate you checking in, and we will catch you on the next one.